Dana White and his wife get into a power slap battle. Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown is official for Australia. And also, Damir Ismagulov retires. And Mike Perry called out Donald Cerrone. And a Sun Sal versus Kyler Phillips has been made. I guess a Sun Sal is now out of retirement. We get straight into the news with the biggest of the stories, of course. Dana White and his wife got into a power slap battle in Mexico. I made a video about this with the actual footage of the slap, breaking it down on screen. But this is not a good look for Dana White. You know Ariel Helwani is rubbing his hands together right now. Yeah, Dana White got recorded counter-slapping his wife. And that's a very important part of it. The counter, okay? It was a counter-smack. And that's very, very important for the court of public opinion to take into consideration. If he was just caught on camera dishing one out, scoring a 10-8 round, it would have been a very different response from the public. But his wife and him got into a little bit of an argument. His wife was very, very upset by something Dana White said, it seemed. She was covering up, sort of having her head in her hands. And then she turned around to see him again. He tried to sort of console her and calm down the situation. And I've watched it a few times now. It wasn't just a slap, if I'm being honest. It was a little more than a slap. A slap to me is like across the face, where it's just like a light, you hear the noise, but there's no real impact to it. This was like an open palm strike to the face of Dana White. She really kind of clocked him pretty hard, in all honesty. Now, I'm not going to justify the way Dana White retaliated. I also want to mention this is a very different situation than the John Jones situation. Of course, John Jones 10-7'd his wife pretty badly. She had a busted lip, bleeding all over her face, blood all over the bed sheets in the hotel room. The kids ran out of the hotel room to try and call police on their own dad as he makes a run for it outside of the hotel and starts running down the strip of Vegas, wherever he was at. And then the wife is like scared to say anything and she's like a mess in the face and stuff like that. This is a completely different situation than the John Jones situation. This is a couple having a heated argument and the man doing what the woman did after the woman did it first, which is seen incredibly differently because men and women are different, as much as that is not an okay take anymore. They're very physically different, especially when you're much larger than your wife like Dana White is. And in all honesty, he should have had more restraint. That's my take on it. You get smacked in the face, even if it is a pretty good shot, get wrist control, put someone between you and the woman and just sort of get a distance and sort of try and neutralize the situation. If she's the size of Gabby Garcia and she's dishing out 4-punch combinations on your face, defend yourself. Completely different situation. Do what you need to do. You know what I mean? But if she's much smaller than you, much weaker than you, and she's giving you a hard slap around the face for an argument that you've had, she is in the wrong. 100%. Let her be the only one in the wrong. 2 wrongs don't make a right. You know what I mean? Let someone be in the wrong. That's like the art of stoicism right there. Let some stuff happen if it's not immediately affecting you. You know what I mean? I know he was drunk, but at the same time, you're 50-something years of age. Why are you getting drunk in a club somewhere? You know what I mean? It's a very strange one. But Dana White shouldn't have done what he did. He didn't give her a hard one. It was like a sort of get away from me slap pretty much. And then he sort of pushed her away and she fell to the ground and stuff like that. But I also will say this. She did smack him pretty hard to begin with. Like it was a, it wasn't like a, don't do that. You know what I mean? It was a proper bang, open palm. She's been paying attention to the Power Slap League while Dana White's been working on it in the background for sure, because it was like she had her full arm behind it. It wasn't just a wrist slap like that. It was a full-on whole arm with it, turn her shoulder into it, bang across the face. So it was a real solid hit that she got him with. But hey, like, it's just a weird thing that they're allowed to do, I guess, in the court of public opinion a lot of the time. So I don't think you can be too hard on Dana White, but at the same time, you can teach people to not do the same thing in his situation. Take it. You're a big man. Don't retaliate in anger. Put someone between you and the woman. get wrist control. You're much stronger physically than them. And just sort of get your distance. Don't slap back, because you're a different human. You're a different creature. You know what I mean? Like, if you're smacking back, could get concussed or really badly hurt, and then you look terrible in the situation. But do I think Dana White should be scrutinized so heavily? No. Do I think that we should look at this situation and say it's not okay to do what he did in any circumstance? Yes. But do I also think that we need to look at this situation and say, hey, women, stop thinking it's okay to just slap someone much larger than you and act like nothing's going to happen back? Yes. Like, if I have a daughter in the future, fucking please no, in this current world that we're in, if I have daughters in the future, I'm going to tell them, hey, do not slap men. You know what I mean? Do not put your hands on anyone. I'm not going to teach them it's okay for you to do it, but he's not allowed to do it back to you. So I think we equally need to sort of send a message here of like, hey, no one of any orientation whatsoever should be putting their hands on someone and expecting nothing to happen back, because legally, Dana White acted within the law. He was attacked. He did something back in self-defense and neutralized the situation. He didn't use excessive force. So legally, he's fine. Morally, I don't think he is okay on that. I don't think you should be putting your hands on a woman under any circumstances, drunk or not. Don't be drunk. Have some self-control. Get a little bit tipsy, a little bit buzzed. If you are going to drink at all, that shit's poison anyway. It's poison in the West. Shouldn't drink. But at the same time, don't be fucking putting your hands on much larger men than you, because every now and again there's one that don't have any morals whatsoever and won't show any restraint. So no one put your hands on anyone under any circumstances. That's my take on the situation. Very different to the John Jones situation. Very, very different. This is a lover's spat that Dana White looks bad in because of the gender that he is. Pretty much, right? That's just what it is. He shouldn't have done it. But I broke it down on my second channel, frame by frame, with the video on screen. So that's my take on the whole situation. He's come out and accepted all responsibility. So I think he's been very mature about it. And I also think he's sort of under the impression that he kind of has to take all of the blame, because if he's like, hey, equal rights, you wanted them, you got them, there's going to be a lot more backlash from the press against Dana White. But if he's like, I shouldn't have done it, I'm sorry, people are more likely to sort of stick up for him. And that's what he's got to play on right now. So we'll see how this unravels over the next few days. Listen, maybe there's like someone was checking up on Dana afterwards. That's all I'm going to say. Someone next to Dana, a woman, was like checking up on the face of Dana afterwards and like feeling around the side of his face. So maybe she did clock him with like a bit of a knuckle. You never know, because it's hard to tell in the footage. It's very clear that Dana White just gave her a little swat and then pushed her away to the ground. But she might have fully caught him. Like, you know, some women have rings on when they're slapping. She might have nicked him over the eye. He might be bleeding. You never know. So we'll see how this all unfolds. But that's my general take on the situation. We move on to something else, which is the next story. Randy Brown versus Jack Della Maddalena. Very big fight. Very, very big fight. Really looking forward to this. And yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to this. It's a big one. Jack Della Maddalena needed a big fight. This is definitely going to be on the main card of UFC 284. It should be, at least, because that UFC 284 card, it needs some spotlight. You know what I mean? It really does. And it needs a little bit of help on that card as well, because it's really lost a lot of quality. In my opinion, outside of obviously Volkanovski-Makhachev, the next biggest fight on that card, the People's Co-Main event, was Whittaker versus Costa. There's no real need for the interim belt anyway between Emmett and Yair. They should just be fighting for a number one contender's position. But I get it, you know what I mean? Because Volk's moving up and he might stay there, so you never know when he's going to be coming back. But at the same time, this is a good fight to add to that card. We just need Dan Hooker versus someone on that card as well. That'd be an ideal situation. Put Dan Hooker on the card, the main card. We've now got Randy Brown versus Jack Della Maddalena on the main card. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. Great spotlight for Jack Della Maddalena, who's from Perth, I believe. So this is like his hometown fight for him. And Randy Brown, respect for taking this fight. I am going to go with Jack Della Maddalena. I am. Now, I do respect that Randy Brown has taken on tougher opponents than Jack Della Maddalena has this far into both of their careers. He's also been around for a lot longer, so he's a lot more experienced. But recently in Randy Brown's career, first of all, this guy's not a young guy anymore. 32 years of age. Like, he's got to kind of do it now or never. Jack Della Maddalena's 26. You know what I mean? Like, he is the up-and-comer. Like, Randy Brown's sort of like a really good gatekeeper of the just outside the rankings areas. Where Luque beats him, they go on to fight a ranked opponent. Nico Price beats him, goes on to fight a ranked opponent. Bilal Muhammad beats him, goes on to fight a ranked opponent. So he's not lost anyone terrible. And he was winning the Nico Price fight before Price pulled off that hammer fist from the bottom position situation. I can't even describe the position he was in, but my point is Randy Brown has been fighting a few guys recently that I feel like he's making it so close against. The Chaos Williams fight, I get it. He's Chaos Williams. Very, very dangerous. But I'm looking at like Jared Gooden. Jared the Freight Train Gooden, who couldn't beat Alan Jouban in 2020. You know what I mean? Who like, he's lost to a lot of guys. You know? And he beat Nicholas Stolze is his one big win in the UFC. And he didn't really have any great wins outside the UFC and just sort of stepped in on short notice anyway. So it's kind of like, you know, he's not great. And Randy Brown sort of eked out a competitive decision over him. He broke his toe in the fight. So I respect him anyway for that, for fighting through that. But I'm also looking at the Francisco Trinaldo fight. And I'm thinking to myself, what would Maddalena do to these people? Maddalena, in my opinion, first of all, would KO Jared Gooden, I reckon. Really, really brutally and finish him in the first round. Second of all, old Trinaldo ain't giving Jack Della Maddalena problems. I think Jack Della Maddalena would walk him down, jab his face up, and finish him badly. Because Danny Roberts went to a competitive decision with Trinaldo, but lost because Trinaldo was landing the bigger punches. Look what Maddalena just did to Danny Roberts. Walked him down, made him look like he doesn't even belong in the UFC. And Danny Roberts has had close competitive fights with Trinaldo, with Ramazan Emeev, where he got gifted a robbery decision, but still. Look what Jack Della Maddalena did to Ramazan Emeev, a very dangerous welterweight unranked contender. Just finished him. You know what I mean? Even Ange Lucer is a good name, coming off a win against AJ Fletcher, and Maddalena beat him up, and he was so young at that point in his game. So he's going to get better every fight. Randy Brown backs up a lot in fights and tries to kick from range. So maybe he could catch Della Maddalena. Maybe he chooses to grapple. That could be something that was interesting in this fight. But I think he needs to sort of hurt Maddalena on the feet first in order to be successful elsewhere. But I see him getting backed up, and he's very tall. And he puts his arms out when he backs up quite a bit. And that can work against Chaos Williams swinging wild at you, for you to lean back and get all tall and make him, like, all his shots get caught up in your arms and your shoulders. But against Maddalena, when he rips to the body, I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena by KO in this matchup. I think it's a very good matchup for him, but I respect that Randy Brown's very dangerous. The winner of this has got to get a ranked opponent, though, for sure. We move on to another fight that got announced, which was Rafael Assunção versus Kyler Phillips. First of all, Assunção, I thought he retired. So, it's interesting. To be honest, Kyler Phillips is a bit goofy in his approach to fights at times. And Rafael Assunção just had a great performance in a recent fight against, I want to say it was Victor Henry, who didn't he beat Kyler Phillips, as far as I'm aware. I think Victor Henry beat Kyler Phillips. And Assunção just had a pretty solid performance against him and looked like his old self. You know what I mean? I'm just going to double check if he did actually beat Kyler Phillips. He did, but it was on the regional scene a while ago by a split decision. But you know what I mean? Still, Victor Henry's very, very good. And Assunção beat him. I think I am going to go with Phillips. But if they disrespect Assunção with the odds, it's a pick I'm considering making, in all honesty. But I just think that Kyler Phillips has that sort of like wacky, wild factor that can work against an older veteran who's been KO'd a couple of times at bantamweight, the way Assunção has. In his last few fights, you know, he got finished by Moraes after getting dropped. He got beat up by Sandhagen in a pretty competitive fight, though, but he took a bit of a beating there. Got finished by Garbrandt, finished by Ricky Simone by KO. So we've had a few KOs recently. I just trust Kyler Phillips to find that one moment to finish it out of nowhere. But again, if they really disrespect Assunção in the odds, I'll definitely consider picking him to win that fight. So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips. But don't sleep on Assunção. I'm just confused as to why he's quit his retirement. Maybe he sees something good for himself in this matchup. Or maybe he's like, hang on a second, I ain't got money, so I need to keep fighting. Who knows? We move on to something else that's gone down, which is Mike Perry calling out Donald Cerrone. Good for both of them. I don't mind that happening. I really don't mind that happening. I think that's really good for the both of their careers moving forward. At this point, I think Mike Perry should be the face of BKFC, but I don't mind if they want to make these big fights. I'm telling you this. I think there's something you can do with Mike Perry versus Tyron Woodley. I don't know why these fights aren't being made, in all honesty. I know Perry took a lot of damage in his last fight against MVP, but even BKFC. Mike Perry versus Donald Cerrone. The only problem is, in certain really promotions that want to be considered official, like BKFC, you can sort of not test strictly, but you can't just openly let a guy who admitted that he's on gear in Cerrone, TRT, still a performance-enhancing factor. You can't just let him fight in your promotion because it kind of delegitimizes the whole promotion. You can be less strict with the tests and have people assume that Cerrone's on something because he looks a lot stronger, but you can't have Cerrone come out and admit that he is and then just have him fight in your promotion within a couple of weeks getting it signed. You know what I mean? So I think this would be a good boxing match for some weird little get-together promotion. I know Dan Hardy still wants to fight Diego Sanchez. I don't mind a nice little Mike Perry, Donald Cerrone main event, co-main event, or who knows, Anderson Silva versus someone in the main event, Mike Perry, Donald Cerrone co-main event, a little UFC Legends get-together matchups, who knows, maybe even like a Dan Hardy, Diego Sanchez on the card, Woodley versus Dan Hardy, Woodley versus Sanchez. I know Kevin Lee's looking to get back in there at some point. We'll see what he wants to do with his career, but I wouldn't mind like a little fun little Grand Prix between them where we could end up with like Mike Perry versus Tyron Woodley by the end of it. So sign me up for this. I don't mind it. It'd just be a fun thing to talk about and watch. So yeah, let's see it happen. I'm always rooting for Mike Perry though. That's my brother. We move on. Damir Ismagulov retired from MMA. He said it was health complications. Unfortunately, due to circumstances and health problems, I am forced to end my sports career. Thanks to all who were with me, regardless of the outcome in the battles, who were sincerely sick and worried. It was an interesting journey, a moment to remember. So it does suck to see him retire. And a lot of people are saying this is just because Arman beat him. It's only because Arman Sarukian beat him. And I think it is, but I also think that he thinks in himself, the only reason Arman Sarukian beat me is because I'm having these health complications and I'm not at my best going into these fights. Because remember, he had a long time off due to some kind of like performance-enhancing drug he took to deal with that twitch, that facial twitch that he had. And maybe he just feels like without that medication, he can't really train as well, or maybe he's having something else going on. I'm not going to assume too much about his medical problems, but at the same time, I'm not too angry about this, but I am, because I'd be angry if he had beaten Sarukian and had all these really solid wins and looked like he was going to fight a top 5 guy, and then all of a sudden he's no longer in the sport. But because he lost, I'm more okay with it because we kind of know he's not the top dog. But it would be sad if we didn't know if he was the top dog or not, and then he got taken away from us with the sport. But yeah, I just think he fought Arman Sarukian, had his health complications going into it maybe, and thought, man, if I can't beat Arman Sarukian, I'm not going to be a champion anytime soon. Do I need to keep taking damage in this sport? No. I'll probably just quit. And he's not young either, so been doing it for a long time, 24-2. Yeah, that's all the stories. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.